having trouble doing this for any reason, there are sign-up sheets down here for both classes. Dr. Matthews is at a conference today, I think, so, but we'll make sure he gets the attendance. And I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We'll leave this up for about 2 more minutes. But so Jacob Schpok is here today. This is our last guest speaker of the semester. I'm not going to say that we saved the best for last, but I feel like maybe we did. So Jacob serves as the partner, and he's also head of the platform at Elevate Ventures, which he'll tell you some more about, but we have a lot of connections with our programs and students and the community, business community with Elevate. He's also a member of the investment committee there. He oversees the teams that are responsible for sourcing and sponsoring all their investment opportunities. And he's also responsible for ensuring that their portfolio companies realize strong exits, right? So as an entrepreneur, at some point, you're going to need to have an exit plan. So he oversees all of that. Before joining Elevate, he co-founded 2 startups himself in the logistics industries, and he also worked in a senior leadership role for a telecommunications startup. So he's got a really cool, diverse background in entrepreneurship and leadership. He also has extensive background in state government, so that's a whole nother type of leadership, where he served as the state director for the Indiana Small Business Development Center and the executive director of the Indiana Office of Small Business in entrepreneurship. So he also, we have bragging rights, graduated from our entrepreneurship program in 2005. So that's pretty cool too. I think we haven't had an alumni in a couple of weeks, so very good. So I will turn it over to Jacob to impart his wisdom.
Awesome.
Let's give him a warm welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Boy, it's great to be back here. I sat right over there for philosophy, and I think I had Western Civ in this room too, if I'm not mistaken. So it's cool to be back here. Thanks so much for spending an hour with me. So with talking to Dr. Matthews, he gave me just kind of a rundown on what might be a valuable way for us to spend this time together. He said, give him your background, just talk through your own experience from the time I was sitting right in that seat to today. And then what I'd like to do is really hear from you all where you want to take the conversation, where you want to go with it. So I'm just really thrilled to be here and be back at Ball State. So I grew up in South Bend, and when I was young, I was pretty rudderless. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of rebellious. I got in quite a bit of trouble, but it was just because I was bored. And I was a high schooler, just hanging out at coffee shops. And senior year was fast approaching, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was actually at said coffee shop, hanging out with friends, just being providing no value really, just kind of joking around, and I realized this is kind of what I want to do. This is fun. So maybe I'll go to school to learn how to open up a coffee shop, and then I can just spend my life just hanging out. So I found out Ball State had a impressive entrepreneurship program. So I'm like, all right, let's try that. So I went to Ball State and started. Freshman, sophomore year, C student, junior year, pretty consistent. And then I got into the entrepreneurship program. And one of the first classes, it was ideation. And the professor at the time, Dr. K, he really forced us to think about a big problem that needed to be solved. And I'm like, South Bend needs another coffee shop. That seems like a big problem. And that wasn't good enough. He's like, no, something national or global. And he really forced the class to start to stretch their own thoughts of what they're able to even approach to think about solving and fixing. So I'm a junior at Ball State, and I'm thinking this coffee shop route. So I start applying for every job across Muncie. Every coffee shop has my application on hand, and I start making my way through restaurants. And finally, I got a job at Texas Roadhouse, right over on, what is that, McAllister? McAllister? McGallion, thank you, yeah. My job was clock in and then make salads until I clock out. So I was just there at the window, just like mindless salad making, and I quickly realized I wanted nothing to do with food and hospitality. And here I was, like approaching senior year, thinking I wanted to open up a coffee shop, and now I actually don't want to do that. And this innovation class, or this ideation class rather, that I was taking, having to think of like a big problem, I was reflecting on how I filled out that same job application to every single restaurant across Muncie, Indiana. And they all said the same thing, like, give us your references, what hours can you work, give us your work history, your personal information. And I thought at the time, bear in mind, this is 2004, why can't I just fill out one standardized application and then apply for any job on a network? Just like Monster or Indeed, but instead of a resume, it's a job application. So I had this aha moment. I'm like, I think I'm going to build that. I think I'm going to do it. And with two friends here at Ball State, we went ahead and took those first steps and made our attempt at launching this website with probably the worst name in history, afterclassjobs.com. Just about every single character. We later rebranded it, thinking that was our problem, was the name. We rebranded it to hireon.com. And upon graduation, we moved to Indianapolis to launch this thing. No surprise, I wasn't able to sign a lease for an apartment in Indianapolis on the application when it says that my current place of employment was myself and how much money I was making was nothing. So I had to get a job, and I don't know if it's ironic or coincidental, it ended up being Starbucks, so I ended up at the coffee shop at the end of the day. So I'm working at Starbucks in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'm trying to get this startup off the ground. And we hustled for about 2 years trying to get this thing going. And it beat me up. I could not get it to work. It was a two-sided marketplace connecting employers to students looking for part-time work. So we decided like we gotta pack it in. Like it was killing us, wasting our time. So we ended up shutting that business down, and I'm at Starbucks, and I make the decision, okay, my career trajectory, I'm going to go management route at Starbucks. I'm going to tell the manager, that's like, sign me up for whatever leadership things I need to do in order to move up the ranks at Starbucks. And a mentor, one of the judges from the entrepreneurship program, came walking in that same day and saw me behind the counter. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, this is me now. This is what I'm doing. And he's like, I bet we can get you somewhere in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. So he sat me down. We had lunch, and he just prattled off places I should reach out to see about like whether or not I can get a job. And I followed up. There's one in particular called the Small Business Development Center, which is a nonprofit organization that's funded by the federal government to help businesses get started and grow. So they'll help them with like financial analysis work and marketing work and help them find bank loans and things like that. And that seemed really interesting. That seemed cool. So they had a open regional director position. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to apply for that. So I apply for it, and they're like, hey, how about the administrative assistant position instead? I'm like, I'll take it. Sounds great. So I joined the SBDC as an administrative assistant, and then 6 months later, moved into what's called a business advisor role, which is actually sitting across the table from an entrepreneur and helping them like put their material together and think about their pro formas and how to grow this thing. And then shortly after, I end up in one of the leadership roles with the SBDC, helping all the business advisors across the state just level up their own work. And I want to just emphasize a point that I didn't get that because like I was smarter or had better experience than the other business advisors. It really was just that like I just had like all this energy and determination. Like it wasn't an 8 to 5 for me. I was like really passionate about this stuff and worked late and worked on weekends. And the other ones were like later career, and they're like, I'm going to clock out at 5 and I'll pick it back up on Monday. So because of that, it's like why I moved further along. And then, so that's where we are in the chapter with the SBDC. And then a friend of mine at Riley's Children's Hospital was complaining that they had this budget, to buy baby products like baby bouncers and things like that. You put a little baby in it and it bounces up and down. And the babies will soil them as they do. And then they have to throw the thing away because it no longer holds up to health code. So she was complaining about like just the budget was all over the place. They would buy all these things in January and they'd all be ruined by March, and then they don't have anything for the rest of the year. And when I was at the SBDC, I bumped into somebody, or I was working with somebody that like understood fabrics and things like that. So I reached out and like, hey, how hard would it be to buy a bunch of baby bouncers and then strip out the fabric and replace it with hospital grade vinyl? And then we just sell those at cost to Riley's Children's Hospital. So they had something that would like hold up. I'm like, not hard at all. I know someone that can do it in Elkhart. Great. So we did that. And then we sold them to Riley Children's Hospital at cost, thinking nothing of it, just good Samaritans doing our job. They posted it on a Child Life forum where all people that have this kind of position, they all look at this forum, and they posted that they have a supplier now for these baby bouncers. And they asked if we'd put up a landing page, and so we had like cheap stock pictures of happy babies and like the eBay equivalent picture of this thing, this baby bouncer, and we threw it online. And it was one of these things where like overnight we woke up and we had all of these purchase orders from across North America. And we just realized like we fell into this business opportunity, which was kind of cool. So we're moving this thing along, and I was at the point where it's like, okay, am I gonna do this full time? Am I gonna leave the SBDC and just like get after this thing? And at the same time, there's a state representative, Sue Ellspermann, Representative Ellspermann. She wrote this bill about supporting entrepreneurs in higher ed. And it wasn't really, like it didn't have a lot of substance in like, this is what needs to be done. It's more of like, we should do more. We should just generally do more. So she wrote this bill. And because I was with the SBDC, I ended up having an audience with her. And she was asking like, hey, what do you think about this bill? And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I'm glad that we're doing this. And she asked like, are we doing enough to support entrepreneurs in Indiana? And I got on my soapbox like, no, we're not. We should be doing all this other stuff. So I prattled on, and she let me talk for about 20 minutes. And then the very next week, it comes out that she's going to be Mike Pence's running mate, and she was going to be running for lieutenant governor. And she asked if I'd take those thoughts and put it into a white paper. So I gladly did and wrote this all up. And then she became lieutenant governor. And shortly after, she gave me a call and said, we're going to take that white paper and establish an Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. Would you come run it? And that was not the career trajectory that I thought I was on. But I don't think I could look in the mirror if I was like shaking my cane at like, here's how Indiana could do things better. And then like, they're like, okay, here's the keys, go do it. And then be like, nah, not me, find someone else. So I jumped in, and for 4 years, I held a cabinet level role at state government running this Office of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. Which like if anyone's interested to get into the nitty gritty of government, happy to go that route. But at the end of the 4 years, I had my fill. And Ellspermann, she made the declaration, she's leaving and she's going to go be the president of Ivy Tech. So I left and joined a startup, the telco one that was mentioned. And we ended up raising money from Elevate Ventures. So I sat on the other side of the table and pitched them like, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to change the world. And then we raised money and we proceeded to just burn all that cash. Just like we grew the company. It did fine, but there was a lot of ups and downs that we can get into if that's the direction y'all want to take the conversation. But I ended up leaving that company. Spent a little bit of time just like, kumbaya, who do I want to be when I grow up? Like backpacked in Nepal and married my then fiance and things like that. And then went back to Elevate Ventures saying, hey, do you know any other startups that I'd be a good fit to be a part of? And the CEO at the time said, well, why don't you come and join us as an entrepreneur in resident, and you can work with the startups, and then when you find one that you like, then you can go join them. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I did that, and then I was hooked. I immediately like fell in love with the model. And since joining Elevate 7 years ago, which feels like a blink of an eye, we launched a new fund, a pre-seed fund, and then I moved into a partner role where, as was explained in the beginning, I really oversee the apparatus that we have of companies that like raise their hand and like, I think I might want to raise some capital. Who should I talk to? And like we got a team of folks that they then can work with. and then they'll sponsor deals when they come through for actual investment consideration. And then I'll sit on the investment committee where we decide whether or not we want to proceed with an investment. And then that post-investment piece is making sure that those that we do invest in, they continue to get the support that they need in order to be successful. So that's where I've been since then. So like if somebody would have told me when I was sitting at that coffee shop as a freshman that like the first half of your working career, it's going to be working for a federally funded nonprofit, and then you're going to go work in state government, and then you're going to work in a venture capital firm. I'm like, no, that's not right. I'm going to play hacky sack behind a coffee shop for the next 40 years. So like it was certainly not planned and architected that way, but that's just the way in which my personal career trajectory took itself after graduating from Ball State. So when I was talking to Dr. Matthews, he's like, yeah, give him your background, but like what's important are some of these key takeaways. So obviously I'm like sitting here, I gave you my background, and I'm trying to think, boy, what could be like some key takeaways that I can provide you all that like if I was sitting in your seat would be influential. And I don't know if some of you are like already absolutely zeroed in and laser focused and know exactly what it is that you want to do upon graduation. If you do, that's awesome. That wasn't me. Congratulations on having that level of conviction and understanding of what your path is. And I'll come back to you with a piece of advice. But if you're also like, boy, I don't know what's next for me. The one thing that really has helped me throughout my career and has allowed me to get to where I am today, just like that absolute curiosity and interest in continuing to learn and figure out why things operate the way that they operate. It's really fascinating that in the workforce, there's not a lot of people that do that. And I don't understand why. I don't know why there's so many folks that like, they will show up, they will do whatever their cog in the corporate machine needs to do, and then they will disconnect and they'll walk away, but they won't necessarily consistently be questioning whether or not what they're doing is the right way, or should they even be doing anything at all, and what is the organization's mission, and what's the organization looking to do. So like if I can provide a piece of encouragement for those that you're maybe thinking like, man, what am I going to do after graduating? That's totally healthy, and that's great to like, frankly, not know. Just continue to just approach things with that curiosity. For those that do know what you want to do, when I was at the state, I had a lot of panel discussions with entrepreneurs, and the question that I loved asking every one of them is, what percentage of your success do you tie to your network? And I've never once heard an entrepreneur say less than 50%. It's always 50% or more, and the majority of the time, they say all of my success is due to my network. If you know what you want to do, I would immediately get on LinkedIn, go just filter based on Ball State alums, and then search for the job title of the job title you want 20, 30 years from now. Find that person, I can tell you they're on there, and then ping them. And they will take meetings with you. They will be thrilled that you're even like asking, hey, what's your 8 to 5? What does a day in a life look like for you? What can I do in order to get to where you are and get in that position? And while it will be educational, the other unlock too is that they are going to know places where you can start, and they'll give you leads to jobs that are not going to be on Indeed. Because the kind of positions that you're going to want, the ones that really help you leapfrog in your career trajectory, these are positions that do not get posted, and they get filled by people that are a known entity by those that are looking to hire them. So if you're getting a relationship and getting connected with folks that have the role that you want, they're going to be able to walk you right into job offers and conversations that's going to quickly move you on an accelerated path across your career trajectory. I like to share the story of these high school kids that had a startup idea here in Indiana. And during COVID, they wanted to connect with some of the like household name VCs, like the Mark Cuban type. And there's a piece of software. Some of you might use it. It's quite prevalent in our business. It's called Calendly, and what it does is it will look at my calendar, and it'll identify where I have free spaces, and then it'll make those free spaces public on a link, so I can give that link to somebody and be like, hey, use this and find 30 minutes for us to have a quick Zoom call. So these high school kids, they went on calendly.com/user/ and then started guessing what some of these VCs like Mark Cuban or M Cuban, and trying to guess what their Calendly link was. And they'd find them. And then they'd put themselves on these calendars of these celebrity VCs. And then these VCs would pop up and be like, hey, it's nice to meet you. Not sure how we got connected. And we're like, well, I kind of hacked your Calendly. And they applauded that. Like, that's cool. All right, what are you working on? You've got my attention. But they took the initiative of just connecting with some folks. For myself, I was surprised how many doors will open up just if you ask and you try to get time on folks' calendars. So that's a little bit about my background. I would be more than happy to talk about like VC world, what that looks like from somebody coming in, how do we evaluate deals, how do we invest capital. We could talk about startups, entrepreneurship. I mentioned government, generally like running teams, anything that's going on like trends in macroeconomics or culture. But I want to make sure that like you all leave this and it's meaningful. So I'm going to take a beat and see if anyone wants to like be brave enough to suggest the direction that we take this conversation and have a question that they want to lead in. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about talking about the nitty-gritty of the 4 years you spent in the cabinet office.
Yeah.
I was wondering like how that.
Yeah. What it was like working in government? Yeah. So the question was, this like digging in a little bit more on the time working for the state of Indiana. Government's weird. No surprise, right? It's generally the government is incentivized not to do something, because if they do something and it's wrong, that causes a lot of damage and creates a lot of pain. So it is a force. Government is a force where keeping things as is at harmony and equilibrium, sometimes like in the underbelly, sometimes that status quo is more appetizing for those than doing something that could end up on the front page of, the newspaper, for example. So I'm coming in, I'm all young and gung-ho. I think I was like 26 when I started. And I'm like, let's go change the world. And the old guard's like, oh, that's cute. You go get him, kid. So we ended up creating this office where we had the business consulting piece with the SBDC. We also had this other group called PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, to help like get government contracts and things like that. And then we had this ombudsman. And I'm curious if anyone here knows what an ombudsman is. I didn't either. I was explaining to somebody, I'm like, we're going to have somebody that can help like navigate the red tape of government for small businesses. And they're like, oh yeah, an ombudsman. I'm like, oh, if you say so. I don't know that's what it's called. So we had an ombudsman. And every Monday morning, there was an economic development cabinet meeting with the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of commerce, and a few others. And the focus would be on jobs, right? Like that makes sense. But it's a lot easier to talk about a new manufacturing plant dropping into Lagodi, Indiana, creating 500 jobs than it is to talk about a bunch of small businesses that might materialize some jobs. You don't see it in the same way. You can't do a ribbon cutting for 500 startups that are employing one person as well as you can a ribbon cutting of a new manufacturing plant that has 500. new jobs that are coming with it. So it was always really tough for our elected officials to be able to like message the right way to get voters to understand and appreciate why supporting entrepreneurs and startups is so valuable and important, and how that really creates new wealth in an economy. Because there's really two types of businesses. There's the ones that recirculate money. So if we think of the local barber, right? The local barber is going to be serving that local market, and then they're going to take that money and they're going to buy money or buy things from the grocery store, and it stays in that community. And you have innovation-driven enterprises, large companies that maybe they're selling new software or they're building new cars, and so the money is coming in from outside of that market into that community. And I can stand up here and we can talk about it, and like things can start clicking. But if you want a sound bite to have for a legislator to be able to say to a voter when they don't have a captive audience, that's a lot harder. And that's the friction point that comes in. So one thing that I found to be true in government is if you want to get really interesting things done quickly, don't look for press releases or a lot of pomp and circumstance to be attached to it. Don't use this as a platform in order to deliver a message of here's what the government's doing to support you. Just get this stuff done, do it, and move on to the next thing. As soon as you want to make sure that it's being well promoted, everything starts slowing down and gets gummed up. So it's this funny little reaction where sometimes the departments that you hear the least amount about might be the ones that are creating significant impact in across the state or elsewhere, because they're not necessarily the ones that are always trying to be front and center in the news. But for me personally, what ultimately like led me to move out of state government is just the speed of progress. It is rightfully so slow for government to make decisions and adopt those changes because they're impacting so many people. They can't just break things and then fix it along the way like a startup could. And that made me quite restless. And my particular demeanor does not jive well with thinking of the nth degree of how things could go wrong before then taking action. So I did my time, did my 4 years, and then got out. And thankful for the experience, but and would encourage if anyone like wants to make an impact, government certainly is a great way to do it. But understand that is there is a lot of checks and balances, rightfully so. But it's a different type of environment than a startup culture would be. Yeah, thanks for the question. Cool. Yeah.
So being an entrepreneur, there's obviously a lot of financial risk involved. I know for me, I agree when you mentioned the net worth part. I think it's easy for me to get worried about spending too much money. I see it like a shield.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of get around that?
Yeah, so the question is about spending money and being a startup, and if I'm hearing you correct, like just are you saying like more like how do you model out those pre-seed seed stages, or is it more?
And also how do you like kind of be fine with taking that risk? Because I think
Yeah.
it's easy for me to be worried. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm taking a risk.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the financial risk of it. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, there are some folks that are in our portfolio. There are some madmen that just like they sell their house on this wing and a prayer of this startup idea. That's not me. I don't think I could do it. But like I can tell you that the ones that are successful raising capital from others, it is that they have true conviction in their idea. And that's not to say that they are blinded by the thought that this could fail. They very well know that it could fail, as well as the investor always understands that it can fail too. And it more often than not does fail. But it's that you have so much conviction in the idea that you would be doing a mistake to society if you don't pursue this venture. I call them disgruntled entrepreneurs. They're some of my favorites, where it's somebody who has a pain in their life and they have looked all over the internet for a solution. They've asked everyone, like, how do I solve this? And they cannot find anyone that's selling a solution to this problem that's plaguing them. So they throw up their hand and like, I'm going to have to solve it myself. And then they go off and they solve it, and they coincidentally create a business to solve said problem. To like pull back from my own example, I was sick and tired of filling out that exact same application. So I went on a job, or I went searching on Google. Does anyone have a standardized application that just like I can apply for any job in the network? No one has that. Okay, I guess I got to go do it myself. The other variable here too, I don't come from money. So one hurdle I had to personally get over is this concept that when I ask somebody for $10,000, that isn't like a brace yourself moment for them. There's people out here like, I need $10,000 to get a low code solution out and to pay for some Google AdWords, and $10,000 doesn't even move the needle. It just the relationship of money for some individuals that like, at least for me, particularly in my younger years, I had no real concept on how much money some of these people had. I knew they had a lot of money, but I didn't know they had that much money. So putting it out there, if you're convicted, if you have conviction in your idea, and you're out raising, like I wouldn't be bashful about it, asking for that money. There's an angel network in Indianapolis, and I absolutely love the way that they have their tagline, like informal tagline. It's we're going to show you the best deals that we can find for you to invest in, and we guarantee you will lose all of your money. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's like, ha, ha, ha. And like, okay, if you put any money into a startup and you think that you're not going to lose it all, don't put that money in there. Because the dollars that individuals should put into startups is money that they should immediately consider to be lit on fire. Okay, so I want to now hit this, to that point though, I want to talk a little bit about, you got an idea, what are those stages of capital raising, and like what are the milestones, how much should you raise at each step? Has this class talked about, I know it's not just zeroed in on entrepreneurship, but I'm curious, did this class talk about like minimum viable products? Is that like something a little bit? All right, well, I might be a little repetitive of things that you heard before. But the way that we look at startups and just generally like best practice is we want intense validation that the problem is significant enough where solving it is like providing someone with medicine, not vitamins. So that's the analogy that we use. Yeah?
So why do you think the job application one didn't work out? Do you not think the problem was great enough?
Love that. So for that particular job board, why that didn't work out was poor management. I was consistently trying to play mediator between the marketing co-founder and the development co-founder instead of just actually having us go out and execute and look to make that connection between the employers and the students. We had a little bit of it, but it had fits and starts. Someone actually has grabbed that land now. It's called Snag-a-Job. That's coming to market, and they're doing quite well. So someone figured it out, but it was totally an execution, and I take blame for that, is why that didn't work out. But yeah, if you can get really tight on problem solution, and you know that you can unequivocally defend that this is something that people are willing to spend money to fix, to solve that problem, then that becomes the unlock to actually build what it is that needs to be solved, that your V1 of your product, and prove that you can get $1, just a single dollar. So everything that you did to validate that someone's willing to open up their wallet, up to the point in which you need to start developing something, that should all be free. All you need is like a cell phone plan, the internet, and the ability to have a cohesive conversation with potential customers. And doing that, I'll take a quick segue and say that there's this program called I-Core, where it's for academics when like they come across a new discovery, like I found a new polymer that we can put on rocket ships or a cure for cancer. Cure for cancer is a bad example. A new radar that can see further. But something interesting, but it's not entirely sure if like, do I care about this new polymer? Like, who's going to buy this? What they have them do is make 100 phone calls to validate just the problem. So they're calling people that they think would ultimately buy the solution, and they just ask them, hey, how bad is the problem with the existing polymer that you have on the side of your airplane or the side of your fill in the blank? And if the phone call comes back and they're like, it's really not that big of a problem, like, I guess something new in market would be interesting, but whatever, that kills it. Like, because the most expensive part of landing a sale, it's not them willing to spend $1, it's them actually looking to adopt the solution, changing their habits or their process to actually implement what it is that you're looking to sell. If you can convince them of that, then the dollars is a quick unlock. So if you can do all that front end of saying, hey, I've made the phone calls and I've validated the problem, the first check that you should raise is to build the absolute bare minimum version of what it is that you want to bring to market. The worst looking, worst user experience version, it doesn't matter. Just get something out there and then convince yourself and those investors that someone actually will then open up their wallet and spend the $1 on it. That's the unlock. That first step, that's called pre-seed. Generally, you're selling about 20% of your company at pre-seed stage. Then the next step is now we need to create a repeatable model of like selling this thing. That's called seed, and that's about another 20% of your company that you're selling at that stage. And then after that, you're in this magic land called Series A and Series B and Series C. And the intent here is you have created now a business model where you can validate, if I put $1 in the marketing machine, $5 of new revenue comes out, and here's how long it takes, and here's our conversion rates and everything like that. Then every time you raise from then on, A, B, C, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I'm going to raise, this next round, I'm going to raise, and I'm going to attack the whole Midwest market. In order to do that, I need to hire 3 more developers and 5 more salespeople. And I don't have that money today, so I'm going to raise money to hire those people. And in 18 months, we're going to have enough revenue to cover all those people's salaries. So that's the reason that you raise the money at all. It is to cover the costs to get to that break-even point at that future point in time. So that's what A round, B round, C round, that's what they look like. So why even raise money at that point? And we talk a lot of people out of raising money. Like, you don't do it. Don't muddy up your business ownership by taking Elevate's money or other people's money if you don't have to. And the reason you don't have to is if you are not afraid that the competition is going to move faster than you. So the only reason you'd raise from A to B is that you need to hire a sales team to accelerate and grow faster. Because at some point, you're going to grow so big that the Googles of the world will want to buy your company instead of build a competing product, because they want all the eyeballs and all the accounts that they'd also be buying by taking your business. And it's a math equation. There's a site, it's called Carta, C-A-R-T-A. They manage a ton of cap tables, so ownership tables, like here's how much each person owns. And so they use that data, like macro data, and then they'll spit out these really cool reports like, hey, pre-seed, about 20% is what people give up at these stages. And here's generally how much dilution founders feel up to the point of the exit. So Carta has like this really great data, and it also tell you what the price of these rounds are. And the way that a company is valued is the public markets will tell us, Google will tell us from the public markets, here's how much money they make, and here is what they're worth. It's all in the public domain. The enterprise value, we know what it is. So if we take what their revenue is and what they're worth, and we divide them, we can say that they're worth 6 times their revenue. 6x revenue. That same principle drops all the way down to our Series A. So if someone comes on at our business and they say, hey, I have a seed company, we're making $1 million. What's that company worth? $6 million. Just like we know that if it's software, that's in the same vein. Barbecue sauce companies that are on the shelves at Kroger, same deal. Those are 2x though. Sometimes you'll get a 3x. So I got $1 million in revenue from my barbecue sauce company. Cool. Your company's worth $2 or $3 million. Now, if you want to raise some more money, we'll give you money if you hit our measurements of success. But understand that we're going to come in under the assumption that your business is worth $2 to $3 million today. So if we give you $1 million, we want to have in that equation 25% of your company. If we said that you're worth $3 million. And so how do we? I'm gonna keep riffing on this piece here. So how do we look at success for us? The old adage is 1 out of 10 companies that a VC firm invests in end up realizing the returns to pay for the 9 that end up going bust. Like today, I don't have hard numbers on it, but I'm going to say it's probably more like 20, 1 out of 20. So every single company that we invest in, we want that to be $1 billion exit. We need it to be. We need to at least 10x, or we're not even breaking even. Because if we know that 9 of those won't even 10x, they won't even 1x. They're just going to go right to 0. The other one needs to at least 10x. Makes sense, right? So we look at multiples along the way where if you tell us our company today is worth $1 million, and then we're going to take your money, and then our company is going to be worth $2 million. Okay, that's interesting. Your company just doubled in value. Our money then, theoretically then, would have doubled in value too, right? We would have seen in that trajectory the company doubling its enterprise value, and so the dollar we put in now would be worth $2 at the end of that cycle, that 18-month window or 12-month window, whatever it is. So that's what we look at. The best companies in the world, after they hit $1 million, the best companies in the world, what they'll do is they'll triple their revenue in 12 months, they'll triple again, then they'll double, then they'll double, then they'll double. That is unicorns. Those are so rare, but that's like the absolute dream is to see that. And so we'll have companies that'll come in and be like, we're going to quadruple, then we're going to quadruple again. And us being around the block, we get real cynical and like, just how about we temper those expectations and ground them more towards the types of growth curves that are more in alignment with the things that we see that come out of the market. And spend a lot of time with companies like getting them to refine their pro forma so that they account for things that otherwise typically aren't thought about. Like, what if you don't hit your sales forecast? What if you have this rock star sales leader and then they resign? What if the developers that you hire, they don't push out code as quick as you thought? So those are all the factors that come in that end up altering the pro forma. So that's the way we look at it and the way that we make investment decisions. I definitely riffed a little further than your initial question. Did we hit it though, what you were looking for? Cool. All right. Yeah, I'd love to see if there's other questions or areas that you want to take the conversation. Yeah.
What's a challenge you faced when you started leading a team, and what advice can you give us from that?
Yeah, challenges I've had when leading a team. Yeah. I'm a big believer in like Daniel Pink has written a lot about like this leadership style of giving very clear directions on the outcome that needs to be achieved and allow for high degrees of autonomy on how they go about executing for that outcome. So for my team, I've got this group of VPs, and their responsibility is to bring in new investment opportunities. And for us, we want to make 100 investments this year and invest at least $20 million. That is what we're doing. The 4 VPs that are vertical specific, 2 are in software, 1's in hard tech, 1's in life science. Their approach is incredibly different, but they're all hitting their numbers based on the work style that works for them. So I early in my career, and I'll go back to that reference point about my first company failing. I tried to control everything And that's like, it is in my DNA to try to just micromanage and just like, I want to know everyone's doing everything the way I want it to be done. And I had to force myself to break out of that mindset that, lo and behold, I don't have all the answers. And other people have a chance to like iterate and innovate within their own role. So that's a long-winded way of saying I love leading by having crisp and very clear quantitative outcomes that need to be hit, and then hold them accountable to hitting those numbers. Now, if I've got folks on my team that early indications show that they're not meeting or achieving those particular targets, then my responsibility is very much to like roll up my sleeves and understand what they're doing that's not leading to those end results, to like reverse into that 20 million. If we're in end of Q1 and we haven't deployed 5 million in capital, I need to have hard conversations with the team and understand what they're doing. Where it gets a little precarious though on that is the best I can do is bring in my own recommendations and best practices and suggestions of how I would do the job differently, as well as any network to other potential mentors or folks that can help strengthen these people in their roles as well. So it does, once we know that we've got a problem, we're not hitting those numbers, it does become a little bit more squishy, more qualitative. And there are folks that we have on our team that I've seen that they have the right passion and energy. They're not hitting the numbers, but we, excuse me, but we continue to coach them up, and we don't want to lose them because their DNA is right. Like culturally, they're a good fit for us. And we just need to continue to work with them to get them in that position. I think transparency is also really important, and just I have no life science background. Like all my life science expertise has come since I've been at Elevate. And I just need to be transparent with our life science VP when they tell me, like, we shouldn't invest in this deal because their preclinical trials show poor tox results. And like, okay, I don't know what you mean, but I believe you. I think you're right. And like living a little bit in that humility of understanding that I'm trying to hire people that are smarter than I am, and I need to then entrust them to make decisions in that regard. Does that help? Cool. Yeah.
Hello, my name is David. My question is, well, you kind of answered how do you keep yourself organized and not kind of trying to do everything and being caught up with everything in the big picture and how to delegate? Well, yeah, but not get overwhelmed and get kind of tied up with everything.
I love that. I love that question. Yeah. For those that didn't hear it, just generally, how do you stay organized? I like to look at it from the perspective, and I would imagine a lot of you probably already feel this way, that we have such an abundance of opportunity to like do cool things, and not to mention there are things that we have to do that like 24 hours is not enough. And I can tell you, standing here at age 41, it only gets worse. There is so much cool stuff that I want to do that I just can't do it. So delegation and prioritization, like I remember sitting in these seats and thinking like the academic exercise of SWOT analysis and putting together strategic plans and SMART goals and all that. And just thinking like, is this for real? Is this like a thing? I can tell you unequivocally, like, yeah, it's like life gets really tough if you don't take that time to really discern down what exactly is going to be most impactful towards the organization's mission and vision, or even for yourself individually. Like I mentioned, after I left the startup, I spent this time in Nepal just getting away. And really the whole intent of that is that I could figure out my own North Star. What do I want to do? What brings me joy? What do I absolutely not want to do? What are my value sets? And this is going to sound cliche. I get it. Like, I understand the way this sounds, but I mean this with all sincerity. Like, getting that nailed and then living off of that is going to just put you on a trajectory that'll move you closer to what you want to do and who you want to become than kind of conceptualizing it but never getting it down on paper and then using that as a filtering tool on how you're actually going to spend your time. And it took me a while to like actually boil that down for myself on what matters, what do I want to do, like where do I want to spend my time. Now to that point, I will say my huge issue right now is I've got 2 young kids, and I want to be there as much as possible. And I am like mashing my teeth when I leave the office because there's so much cool stuff I want to do. But I know like I got to put down the laptop and I got to walk away, and I got to be okay with that because like my boy's only going to be 6 and my girl's only going to be 4 this year, and like I want to be there and experience that. When it comes to delegation, if like I would say that there's 2 kind of hires. There's the ones that you hire and you're going to know which one it is on day 1. On day 1, you're going to know, did I hire a growth mindset leader? And my responsibility is merely to shovel more work in front of them so that they consistently feel challenged and in some sort of upward trajectory of growth. That person manages themselves. The thing you need to worry about with that type of hire is you need to consistently be giving them more work to do, because the moment that you think that they're on autopilot, they're actually looking for a new job because they're bored. That is a archetype. The other is the one that does not have a growth mindset. And sometimes that's okay. If you just need someone to do something that likely will be replaced by AI in 10 to 20 years, and you just need a warm body that can pick up the phone, that's okay. Yeah, like, understand what you got though. Don't try to push that person into something that they're not motivated to do. In both buckets, it has nothing to do with intellect either. I can tell you, like I mentioned, C student here, I by no stretch was great at school. For me, the iota of accomplishments that I've been able to have, it came just from like putting in the hard work and just trying to work on having a growth mindset and just challenging myself. So I would look at it that way. So when you delegate, understand who you're delegating it to. Is it a growth mindset person? Or is it someone where you just need someone that can do a pretty less mental, cumbersome task? Does that help? Sweet. Yeah.
Having some experience working with a nonprofit, what would you say are some typical challenges that people who want to start one might face?
Yeah.
How can you kind of minimize those risks?
Sweet. Yeah. How do you minimize risk with nonprofits? Okay, so here's my first piece of feedback here is I see too many nonprofits that believe that them merely putting out in the world that this is a problem that we want to solve is sufficient to get grant dollars and to extract money from other sources in order to build their coffers. Too many nonprofits are not thinking, it's called logic model, like here's our inputs, here's what we're going to do, and then the third is the outcomes, like quantitatively, what is the return on investment? How much, like it's, I was talking to somebody about human trafficking, right? Like if I want to put money into human trafficking to support those that have been trafficked, and maybe I have 2 organizations coming to me, and one has really cool marketing, and it's like we're gonna be super supportive, and then the other one says, with $1,000, we can find a job and stability and coaching and counseling for this person. I'm now understanding that there's an outcome with this other organization, and it's that degree of quantitative IRR, like return on investment, that becomes the unlock where I see nonprofits just making it to the moon, because they can show not only are we like well intentioned, but we are going to use your money wisely, and here is how. And I think that's a really interesting attribute when it comes to nonprofits. The other piece too that I'll add, actually just talked the other class about this. There's this other legal entity now. It's called a B Corp, benefit corporation. And the story I like to share is Henry Ford. He wanted to give all of his employees at Ford health insurance, and his shareholders sued him because he has one responsibility, and that is to get the highest return possible to his shareholders, or he did before he passed. That is every company's sole responsibility, highest returns possible. And if you're not doing it as a for-profit business, you can be sued by your shareholders. Isn't that interesting? So there's this new entity called a benefit corporation, where you're a for-profit business, but on the same level as having fiduciary responsibilities of having returns, you can have a social or environmental cause. So you could say, yeah, we're gonna give our shareholders return, but we're also going to, Tom Shoes, give a pair of shoes to someone in need every time we end up selling a pair of shoes. And then if I was a shareholder of Tom's and I wanted to shake my cane like, you're not giving me enough money, like dividends or below, we should stop doing this buy one, give one shoe thing. They can say, no, we're a benefit corporation. You can't do anything. Like, that's part of who we are, and that's in our DNA. So I offer that because sometimes what I'll see is that there are organizations where folks are like, I want to own this thing, and I want to do good in the world. And then they start getting into the nuance of what it means to be a nonprofit, and like how you really don't have any control, and the board needs to be structured a certain way. And there's a lot of variables that go into being, a lot of bureaucracy that goes into truly being a nonprofit, where maybe if you're ever thinking like, I might want to start a nonprofit, it might be worth exploring. Maybe you want to start a benefit corporation, which will give you a little bit more versatility, and you can be a little bit more agile in supporting whatever cause you want without having the cumbersome bureaucracy of a 501c3. So I just offer that. Is that helpful? Cool. All right. I know we're getting closer on time here. I thought I saw another hand. I don't recall where it was. Any other questions? Places you want to take the conversation? Going once, going twice? One or two more? All right. Someone must have. Anyone building something cool? You wanna talk about? Yeah.
So, me and two of my homies have an artist coaching company.
Have a what?
Artist and coaching company.
Oh, sweet.
So we do open mics, art galleries, on our Instagram. We have pretty successful, like actually one of the conventions for like and anything to kind of push out. But right now, the struggle is like there's three of us kind of like delegate everything to where we're getting like so we might not always put it into action, or I might be more the type of one, so we can just stay like very one. We don't have too much consistency, whereas when we have a plan that is spread.
Yeah. You're not set up for scale yet.
But we have to be. So
You have what?
but we have to be.
Yeah.
I just need to work and then other people like and then like extra ones do it. But
Sweet.
we don't have the structure of it,
Yeah.
we would without us doing everything. We're not making money yet. So it's not like
Yeah. So you got demand, but you're not yet ready for scale, and you're feeling like that, hitting the ceiling of founder-led sales and operations, and you're hitting that wall. Yeah, that's a common theme. It's a good problem to have. Here's the two variables that I would consider to dig into. One is, are you pricing yourself appropriately? Can you double what you're currently charging? Is there a way you can make room? Because what I'm hearing is you still need things to be founder-led, and maybe if we had a little extra cash, there'd be some versatility some ability to bring in some contractors, some trusted partners to be able to help out. So that's the first place I'd look, is I would suspect that there's still some more juice you can squeeze on your pricing and get that figured out. Let's say that that's not appropriate. The other is it's really easy for founders to understand the platform that they're creating and all the opportunity that that platform provides and want to take it all in at once. Is there a single lane that you can start with? A very focused, defined, high margin activity, just one activity that you can just nail and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And then when you're ready to bring someone in, the person you actually bring in is someone that can document exactly how this is done over and over. And you got a project manager over and over. And then you allow for that single feature or that one single product on this platform to then exist. And then you set up the next one, and you set up the next one. Because too often, where we often see it is when a startup, they're going to sell software to small businesses, finance offices, and then someone from the marketing firm in a large corporation express some interest, and they're like, oh, well, let's go over here too and do this. Because like it's revenue, it's something interesting. But it's not going to allow the company to scale as quickly as if they stay absolutely focused on one ideal customer persona with one product. So that'd be my recommendation. See if you can bump up your existing pricing plan and see if you can get real narrow and deep. Love that question. Any final quick hit question? All right. Thanks for your attentiveness. I'm going to hang out here for a minute if anyone has any questions they want to ask. I'm also on LinkedIn, surprise, surprise. So if anyone wants to connect or have any questions for me, you can find me on there too. But thanks again. Really nice to meet you all.